in New Braunfels facility. And if this is your first time hearing from me lecturing at DOSREC, and I'm really excited to bring this one to you guys today. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Jackie Williams, and I'm a mom to 3 boys. You're probably going to hear them in the background playing, honestly. I'm also an Air Force spouse, and I have worked in the health and fitness industry for the last 15 years as a personal trainer, a group fitness instructor, and a sports nutrition coach. Again, thank you to the New Braunfels DOSREC today for sponsoring this presentation. We are going to be talking about fueling for optimal performance with nutrition. And as we go, if you do happen to have any questions, feel free to comment with those below, and I will take some time at the end of this presentation to get those answered for you. So as we go, if you have questions, pop them in the chat. Again, if you will, let me know where you are tuning in from, and feel free to tag some of your workout buddies today that might also be interested in this kind of information. As a special gift for tuning in, I will send you guys a free downloadable Healthy Living Revolution cookbook full of healthy recipes, and you can get a link to access that before we go today, so definitely stay tuned for that. You can find and follow me right here on Facebook at Jackie Williams Wellness, or over on Instagram at Authentic Fit Chick. And if you have any questions that you'd like answered on a more personal basis, whether it's fitness or nutritional inquiries, feel free to reach out to me via email. You can see my contact info there. So if you are serious about your training and you want to maximize your results and your efforts with nutrition, definitely stay tuned. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'm going to go over some of the more basic principles that you can definitely take into consideration and start to apply right now, today. Again, as we go, if you have questions, let me know those in the chat. And if you have any workout buddies you want to tag, feel free to do that. So I'm going to switch it over here and talk about these 4 main points I want you to consider before we even get started. It's really important that you keep in mind there is no one-size-fits-all recommendation when it comes to nutrition. So that's really important to keep in mind. You're going to kind of take what you can from the lesson today and use it appropriately for you. So you will gain a general understanding of some of these really important points. And I really want you to take these into consideration when trying to fuel your performance properly with nutrition. So today I'm going to cover training type, the modality, the goals of your training program. I'm going to cover nutrient types. So we'll take a closer look at both macronutrients and micronutrients when it comes to fueling for performance particularly. And it's always important to take into consideration your body type or your body's natural morphology and metabolism when determining what specific training goals and nutrition strategies might work best for you. So I'll introduce you to those 3 main body types today. And finally, we will discuss nutrient timing. So I will leave you with a general guide you can follow concerning when to eat and what to eat so you can best maximize your performance and your recovery. So first, let's speak to training type. I've really narrowed it down here to these 3 main categories. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more that goes along with that. Endurance athletes are those who are training for particularly high-level competition. They're usually logging a lot of miles, whether it's swimming or biking or rowing or running. If you'll do me a favor as we go, comment below which one of these 3 categories you would put yourself in. So if you're an endurance athlete, just put endurance down in the comments for us today. If you are a strength athlete, those who are looking to, build more muscle mass and strength, they usually are lifting weights with serious growth in mind. Comment below if that's you, if you're a strength athlete, or if you are, like most of us, probably just a general exerciser. So that's where I would put myself in today's world, as a general exerciser, where we're just exercising for health and overall fitness, and have maybe more modest goals or sometimes even unique physiological needs. So regarding your training type, comment below which one you kind of would put yourself in which category today. And then we're going to keep that in mind as we look forward. So real briefly, let's go over some nutrition basics before we get into the more detailed stuff. It's really important when we think about nutrition that we understand it's just the nutrients we get from food. The building blocks of our cells is the nutrients that come from the food that we eat. So those nutrients renew our cells, which then create our tissues or our muscles, our organs, and then complete systems within our bodies. So it really starts with what we're putting in our mouth. And without quality food, so that's the first point I wanted to make, we can't expect quality performance. We really need quality food for quality performance, and that's going to be key in whatever recommendations you take from today. I like to equate it to, running a sports car on regular fuel, not premium. If any of you have a sports car, you know that if you start putting just regular fuel in that sports car, it doesn't run quite as smoothly or efficiently, and it doesn't run for quite as long. It doesn't have that longevity in its engine. I want you to consider your body a sports car, especially if you are an athlete. Would you just put regular fuel in it and expect it to run at a premium race? Probably not. So we really want to think about quality versus quantity when it comes to nutrition. Same goes for hydration, you guys. Without adequate hydration, we really cannot expect our bodies to run optimally. Our muscles especially have a high content of water. 60 to 75% of our muscles are water. And with just a 1 to 3% degree of dehydration, you can start to have a negative impact on your performance. So hydration is sometimes overlooked, but it is key when it comes to optimal performance. And then there's portion control. So, this is an easy, effective, and really a convenient way for most of us to monitor the appropriate amount of food that we're intaking. So I'm going to show you how to do that, my little trick for that. And then finally, we'll talk about timing. Nutrient timing is important, especially if you are trying to maximize your workouts. So we're going to talk about when to eat, both before, during, and after your workouts. Okay, let's explore body type a little bit. Like I said, there's 3 main body types or stomatypes, and each are typically include a few general characteristics. So the first is going to be your morphology, or the shape or your skeletal structure of your body. The second is going to be your hormonal environment. This has a role in how that is manifested in your body type or shape. And then third is your metabolism. So this includes your metabolic rate and also how nutrients are processed in your body. That's going to look a little bit different for everybody, and it's definitely something that you want to take into consideration when making recommendations or protocols for your particular needs. So I do want to point out really quick that sometimes you'll notice in particular sports, especially at an elite level, that it's common for certain body types to gravitate towards certain activities or specific positions within sports. So, for example, this ectomorph body type, which is characterized by a thinner frame, longer, leaner limbs, they typically have a faster metabolism and a greater tolerance and need for carbohydrates in particular. And it can be challenging for this body type to gain weight or muscle mass. So generally speaking, this body type kind of gravitates towards our more endurance sports or athletics. While the mesomorph, which you see here in the middle, they may still be lean, they tend to build muscle more easily. And they're typically among your power and sprint athletes, your bodybuilders, and all of the various sports that require some more strength. And your endomorph, which you see on the very far right-hand side there, is a body type that tends to have a greater propensity towards fat storage. So they have a lower tolerance for carbohydrates typically, and actually have a difficult time losing weight or maintaining weight. So while these body types are very, very strong, we tend to see them in sports like powerlifting or other strength sports, sometimes on the football field, those kinds of things. So these are the 3 main body types that you also want to start to take into consideration when we look at these recommendations. But I just want to note that these are generalizations. Really, any body type can and does compete in any sport or training modality, and really all are found among our general exercisers. It's just important when considering the factors that come into play for optimal performance that our body type or our genetics are also considered. Okay, so here is a really quick guide that you can kind of put everything that I'm about to show you into this little chart here and simplify it. So this is a guideline according to body type, which you see on the far left there, and its most common corresponding fitness goal, which we just talked about. Obviously, those can be interchangeable, so just keep that in mind, but this is just a cheat sheet. So what you're looking at here is the pre-workout, the during workout, and the post-workout recommendations. And I want you to notice that pre-workout and post-workout are generally going to be the same for every body type. The meal composition per body type is going to vary, which I'm going to talk about next. But the only thing that really changes is that during workout recommendation. So you can make note there, dependent upon where you kind of fall in that body type chart, of what might be most appropriate for you when it comes to your during workout nutrition. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail, but you'll notice the ectomorph, there typically would require an additional protein and carbohydrate drink, or maybe some essential amino acids during their workout, because remember, they have a harder time putting on that weight. So we want to support that during their workout. While your mesomorph can also add that in, because while they tend to not have a difficult time adding on muscle mass or even weight, we can still support their performance with that. And during workout for an ectomorph, we would stick with just an essential amino acids during their workout. Again, those are going to be optional. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about that here next. So just keep that in mind. So this is my handy dandy portion guide, little cheat sheet here that I love to share with my clients. I love to teach my clients to use this as their guide, because it's always with you. You can always rely on your hand to be a guide. You don't have to then necessarily think about counting calories or macros, which can actually have a really big margin of error. And it's not as easy to do all of the time, where this is something you can definitely incorporate into your meal composition all the time. So when we're relying on our own hands to monitor our food portions, it adjusts as our body size or type adjusts too. So you'll notice your hand is a lot smaller than somebody else's, or bigger, etc. So it's definitely going to be a lot more proportionate to us personally. And you can see here that protein is going to equal a palm, the size of your palm typically. Vegetables are going to be the size of your fist. Carbs will be your cupped hand, and fats will be your thumb. So using your own hand as a guide, let's take a closer look at how we can compose meals based on each body type. So if you are an ectomorph, this is going to be your typical meal composition. In general, for all of these body types, males are going to double their portions compared to a female as a single portion or serving. So a man will have 2 servings of, lucky men, are going to have 2 servings of their proteins and the veggies and their carbs typically, compared to a female, which is going to have 1. So definitely keep that in mind as we go through here. It's still a single serving technically for them. So you will notice here there's a couple differences I want to point out, and this is where it gets important to differentiate between what your body type is and how your meal should be composed. This is both pre-workout and post-workout. So you'll notice here that ectomorph meals do include more carbohydrates. In this example, there are 2 servings for the female, and there's going to be 3 servings for the male. And that is because the added carbohydrates are really needed for them to help put on that muscle mass or fuel their performance if they're an endurance athlete. And actually, you'll also notice that in lieu of that, their fat serving is going to be a little bit lower. So remember, this is the meal that we are going to be composing both pre-workout and post-workout. Next, looking at the mesomorph meal here, you can see there's a slight difference in this, they're just getting the straight 1 serving each. There's no differentiation between carbs and fats. There's no adjustments that have been made. This is a standard mesomorph meal. So I would say if you don't know where you fall in the body type categories, you can safely usually say that you're a mesomorph, unless that is going to change depending upon your training goals. Okay, and then lastly, the endomorph meal composition. So you'll notice here that there's a significant drop in the carbohydrate intake. We've pretty much cut that in half for your average endomorph meal. Because an endomorph metabolism and hormone profile, they typically are going to perform better with less carbohydrates. Now, obviously that is definitely adjustable. If you are still training at those really high volume or high intensity rates, you might need more carbohydrates. And that's when it starts to get really important that you listen to your body and you create that body awareness, become familiar with what your needs truly are. You'll also notice that we increased the fat portion there to make up for that. Okay, so let's move on and talk about nutrient timing. So again, those meals that I just went over are going to follow those suggested meal composition guides based on your body type or your training goal. So on that first chart, if you were, kind of mix those around, you can do that. That's totally fine. So an endomorph could have goals of a mesomorph, for example, and you could switch that, or vice versa. But they're all going to be within a 1 to 2 hour window pre-workout and a 1 to 2 hour window post-workout. And the during workout fuel is what's going to vary. So that's going to vary based on body type, and training length or intensity. And I will discuss that further once we get into that. So by now you have just a really basic overview of the most simple workout nutrition recommendations to start with. So based on your goals, your body type, and now we're going to dig a little bit deeper and review what's happening in particular at each of these stages. So first we're going to look at our pre-workout nutrition. So again, this is 1 to 2 hours prior. And what you eat before you exercise really does make a difference when it comes to performance and recovery. I mean, we've all had those workouts, right, where you weren't properly fueled and your effort and performance really suffered, like you dragged that day. And that's really important because our bodies are meant to run off of the fuel that we're feeding them. So if you want to have optimal performance, you really should be eating within that 1 to 2 hour period. Now, there are some exemptions, and so I'll go into that next. But if you can, within that 2 hours, you really want to work out or eat before your workout so that you can sustain your energy, boost your performance, hydrate, which is really important as we talked about, and preserve muscle mass, and also speed up recovery. So I want you to think about choosing good quality foods before you work out. There's nothing worse than eating like fast food before you go hit a workout. Your body really doesn't want to have to process through those kinds of things and then go and perform. So I think that really doesn't need to be said, but I'd like to just add that reminder in too. Good food matters. So let's look a little bit deeper at the macronutrients. So the macronutrients really are the fuel to our body. So just like your body is that sports car, macronutrients are going to be the gas that give it energy, that make it go. So this includes protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And each of those do play a really important role in fueling our bodies for optimal performance. So let's look a little bit closer at each of them. So protein pre-workout can help you maintain or even increase your muscle size as you work out. And that's important for anybody that wants to improve health, improve their body composition or their performance. And it does that by reducing the markers of muscle damage during that workout. So that can prevent, or it can at least prevent the muscle damage from being worse. Okay, so it can either prevent it or it can minimize it, that muscle damage. The less damage to your muscles, the faster that you can recover and the better that you can adapt to your exercise over the long term. Protein flooded into your body pre-workout gives your body, your bloodstream, all of those amino acids that it's going to need for the workout. So we really want to make sure we're getting enough protein to help boost that. And then eating carbs pre-workout is also really, really important, sometimes overlooked, however, but carb really is energy for our body. It's a quick, easily accessed energy source. And so we want to make sure that we're also getting a good amount of carbs within that 2-hour time frame. Especially if you're doing high intensity training, this is important, but also longer duration at the same time. So unless you're going on like a quiet stroll or you're doing a low impact kind of a workout, you really just want to make sure that you have some carbs in your system to improve that performance. So carbs in your muscles, so glucose is going to be stored in your muscles and in your liver, and that's going to be readily accessible energy. But once that runs out, you want to just make sure that we're refueling it as well. So okay, and as far as fats go, the truth is they don't really appear to fuel performance. You can kind of take them or leave them. So that could be a personal preference, or maybe it could be based on, where your meal composition recommendations lie, but they do help slow digestion, and that can help you maintain a nice steady blood sugar level, which can help you feel more like a even keel, right? So you're not having that crash of low energy at some point. And also in and of themselves, fats are really good for you as long as you're choosing healthy fats, which is really important. I do want to caution you again to just be mindful of trans fats or saturated fats, especially pre-workout. So that's especially when you're choosing pre-workout, because it can actually have a deleterious effect on the dilation of your blood vessels. So your blood vessels need to expand and to, pump blood to your body and your muscles while you're working out. And we want them to be able to do that freely and safely. And when we fuel our body with those trans fats or those saturated fats, so typically things in like fried foods, fast foods, heavily processed items, it's actually going to constrict those blood vessels, and it's going to make your body have to work harder to pump that blood. And that's obviously not a healthy, good thing, and definitely can have a negative effect on your performance at the same time. So that is one strong recommendation I would like to make, is avoid those bad fats. Okay, so with those things in mind, still talking about pre-workout nutrition, it really just depends on what your individual needs are, but you can have pretty much a normal meal before exercise. Maybe breakfast or lunch or dinner, that's totally fine if it's within that 1 to 2. You can even stretch it to a 3-hour mark. Or if you're like me, you can have a smaller meal before your exercise. You're just going to time it a little bit differently. So I don't like to have a meal right before I'm exercising. I prefer something smaller that's just enough to get me by. So you're going to see here 2 options. The first option, pre-workout, is to have just your normal meal composition based on your body type 1 to 2 hours before your workout. The second option is a smaller meal. This is where we start to introduce like a protein smoothie or a protein shake, 0 to 60 minutes before your workout. So those are your 2 pre-workout meal options. It's totally up to you what you would like to do. The third option I don't have on here because it's not really that great for optimal performance, but it can help if you have some certain goals, particularly fat loss, is you can work in a fasted state. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but if you are working in a fasted state, you just want to make sure that you are, number 1, eating as quickly as possible post-workout, but number 2, you probably want to consider having those essential amino acids during your workout. So I'll go into that during our workout phase. Okay, so during workout, there are going to be some options here, but really the goal, if you are choosing to, fuel during your workout, is number 1, to stay hydrated. That should be your first and foremost priority. You can rely on sports drinks if that's something that is helpful to you. It's usually not necessary unless you're working above a 2-hour mark, but that's definitely person and training specific. You also want to make sure that you have that immediate fuel if you need it. So depending upon your goals or your body type, that might be necessary for you. During your workout, if you need that extra boost in performance, adding in some fuel during that time can also be helpful. And it can also help you preserve muscle and lead you down a quicker recovery. So I want to talk about the reasons. Oh, we'll come back to that. Let's look at the macronutrients for during workout. So, taking another look at macros, we are always going to include the protein, the carbs, and the fats. Those are our three main macronutrients, but the reasons why are going to differ, whether it's pre-workout, during workout, or after. So eating protein during your workout is going to help prevent that muscle breakdown then and there. Which then leads to an improved recovery and a greater adaptation to your training long term. And so this is especially true if you are, number one, working out fasted, in that fasted state, or if it's been greater than 3 hours since your pre-workout meal. So that could be important to you to add in that protein at that time, or those essential amino acids, a BCAA kind of supplement. And then eating carbs during exercise is also going to give you that immediate fuel source and can help boost performance, facilitate faster recovery, but it also can keep your stress hormone cortisol down and help keep your beneficial hormones up, which is a really great added benefit. And in addition to that, it's definitely important for those athletes who are going on longer runs, or people that want to gain more muscle, or if you're just really highly active, maybe an ectomorph who has the need for really every last calorie that you can get to help you increase mass or strength or performance. So when it comes to recommendations, specifically, the maximum amount of carbohydrates that can be digested or absorbed during exercise is 60 to 70 grams per hour, and that's a lot. So if you include a protein, which is what I recommend, in that mix with your carbohydrate, you can achieve those same endurance benefits from that higher carb with only 30 to 45 grams of carbs per hour. So a great protein plus carbohydrate option to fuel during a workout would be about 15 grams of protein matched with 30 to 45 grams of carbohydrates. And again, fats during exercise really aren't necessary. In fact, I recommend avoiding fats during your exercise fueling. They can just be a little bit harder to digest. And during training, you really don't want that blood to be prioritized in your stomach for digestion, because it should be prioritized into your muscles for your workout. Okay, let's look at timing during your workout, because there's 4 main recommendations and ways that you can kind of determine if this is appropriate for you. The first would be for training that's less than 2 hours long, it's probably not necessary, and you should really just focus on hydration. This is especially true if you are using good pre and post training nutrition timing. But if you are not, so if you are not having that pre-workout meal, then that might be appropriate. Or if you are trying to gain maximum muscle. So if you are trying to, use all of that energy source, that food source, to go right into those muscles as much as possible, then you might want to consider adding in that protein and carbohydrate drink, the 15 grams of protein matched with the 30 to 45 grams of carbohydrates. And then if you want to either gain muscle or lose fat, you could benefit from adding in during workout essential amino acids, which typically I would recommend between 5 and 15 grams per hour as a replenishment for you during that. And the good thing about the essential amino acids is it's pretty much just straight protein or amino acids, and you're taking out the carbohydrates. So especially if fat loss is a goal, you don't need those added carbohydrates during your workout. You want to use the stores that you have. Okay, and so finally, if you are training for longer than 2 hours, you definitely want to consider adding in that protein plus carbohydrate fuel. And you might even also consider adding in something like a sports drink at the same time, just to make sure that you are properly hydrated, you have those electrolytes and all of that. So any of that can come in the form that you choose. I do recommend like liquids or gels, something that's really easily digestible, again, because you don't want to prioritize digestion at the time you're working out. But sometimes fruit or things like that can also be appropriate. Okay, so let's move on to post-workout. Again, eating within that 1 to 2 hour time frame, post-workout nutrition really is beneficial to help you, jumpstart that recovery phase. It can help you ease muscle soreness, rehydrate, which is important for your muscles. Again, they're composed of a lot of water. If you do find that you're typically really sore after your workouts, I always suspect hydration first and foremost. You want to make sure that you're properly hydrated, especially to combat that. Also going to help you refuel, give you more energy, replenish those glycogen stores in your muscles and your liver, and build muscle at the same time. And all of this will help improve your future performance. The better you recover, the better you perform in the future. Okay, lastly, let's look at the macros post-workout. So these are really going to be very similar to those in the pre-workout, but for different reasons. You know, post-workout, again, we're trying to help our bodies move into recovery quickly and effectively, where pre-workout, we're really just trying to fuel our work ahead of time. So protein still is going to help prevent that breakdown and start to stimulate some synthesis or growth. And this will this will lead to increased muscle mass or gain or strength. So it's also really important just for overall recovery and performance at the same time. I want to touch on really quick the importance of fueling with a high quality complete protein, because typically post-workout is when we start to introduce a protein shake or a smoothie again. And because we're trying to get it into our bodies quickly, we want something that is relatively easily digested. So especially if you're sticking within that, 1 to 2 hours time frame. But we have to be careful because protein powders can actually be more harmful than good to our body if we're not choosing a high quality one. So again, you're the sports car, your body is like a sports car. We want to fuel it with quality nutrition, and our protein formula should not be an exception to that, especially because it's something that's it's going right into our bloodstream and our muscles, but also it's something we're consuming on a daily basis. So you want to be mindful of that. One of the biggest mistakes I see is just relying on really low quality, cheap protein formulas or supplements that are full of fillers, artificial sweeteners, or other ingredients that really can do more harm than good. So don't overlook that. Okay, and then as far as carbohydrates go, same thing. You want to choose a low processed whole food carbohydrate whenever you can. I love sweet potatoes or vegetables and whole grains as much as possible, because I really view, eating as an opportunity to give my body as much nutrition as possible, not just the macronutrition, but also the micronutrition, which I will touch on next. And so it's really important that we're giving our body these whole food quality, quality carbs, quality protein as much as possible. So, and as far as fats go, post-workout is a great time to add those in. They're really important for our overall health, as long as we're keeping them in the healthy fat category. They're good for our heart health, our cardiovascular health, our brain health. They even are really beneficial for our mood, our hormones, our sleep, and for athletes in particular, reducing inflammation, which can be definitely a problem. The more that we train, the more that our bodies do start to kind of come up against that inflammation. So while it might not have a direct effect on our performance per se, because healthy fats are affecting all of those other parameters of our health, it definitely can have an effect in other ways. Okay, so post-workout recommendations. Again, if you ate a normal size meal before your workout, you can, wait up to 1 to 2 hours and refuel at your next meal as you like. It really is kind of just based on what your schedule ends up being. But if you can, optimally, you're trying to fit it in within that 1 to 2 hour mark. Now, if you are coming off of a fasted workout and maybe you weren't replenishing during that meal or during that workout, you definitely want to try and get that post-workout meal in as soon as possible, ideally within 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, so here are a couple meal ideas. I didn't want to leave you guys without those. However, I hope that you realize that really you're free to eat just about anything that fits in those parameters. So it's a whole food, quality nutrition that's going to allow us to really use that portion control guide via our hands. As we start to get into more processed foods, these don't become quite as reliable for you to make sure that you're staying within those macronutrient recommendations. So I do recommend, first and foremost, choosing whole foods when possible. following that portion guide with your hands when you can, and then building your meals around the recommended meal composition for your body type or your training type. And if you're hungry, if that's not quite enough food for you, my go-to suggestion is always add in more vegetables. We all could use extra fruit and veggie nutrition. It's recommended that we get 7 to 13 servings of fruits and veggies a day. And as athletes, that's closer to 13 or 18 or some impossible number. So use that hunger as a cue, as a way to get more fruit and veggie nutrition in. And above all else, remember that what you can do, like what you enjoy and what you want to eat, is going to help you kind of stay consistent. So find what works for you, as long as you can kind of fit into those parameters. So I would love to know from you guys, comment below, if you will, what are some of your favorite go-to pre-workout or post-workout meal ideas. Just share those with our audience here. I'd love to hear that. And just a reminder, for tuning in today, I do have a free downloadable cookbook full of healthy recipes that I'm going to share with you. So I will get you a link to access that towards the end. We have a couple more things I want to just remind you here. When we're talking about fueling for optimal performance, macronutrients are really important, those proteins, those carbs, those fats, and that's something that we are typically well versed in, even as, general exercisers. But what I often see neglected and equally important are micronutrients. So micronutrients are going to be like the oil in your car. Macronutrients are like the gas that gives us the energy to go. Micronutrients is what allows us to run smoothly and efficiently and safely. And this is going to include things like vitamins and minerals and antioxidants, phytochemicals, and other micronutrients that are typically found in your whole foods. So these are really important, especially as athletes. I mean, just for overall health, they're important, but for athletes, they are going to help your body heal and renew and prevent and protect on a cellular level. And remember, food nutrients are what build our cells, and those cells are what then become our tissues or our muscles and our organs and our cardiovascular system. So it's really important that we're building them with healthy food. If you want a nice, strong, healthy body, you should be consuming healthy foods at the same time. So like I said, most of us are not getting enough. Typically, it's a 7 to 13 servings of fruits and veggies a day. That's where you're going to find the most nutrient dense foods, but most of us are not getting that. So I think it's 9 out of 10 Americans are missing the mark on that recommendation. So while you are focusing on your optimal performance, I do recommend, paying more attention to your micronutrients. In fact, there was a study done in the Journal of Sports Nutrition that studied 70 athlete diets, and every single one of them was deficient in nutrients, up to 15 different nutrients. And so I'm always going to be a huge advocate for whole food nutrition for everybody, especially athletes. And even young child athletes. I have 3 boys, and I know how hard it is to get them to eat their fruits and veggies, but we have to just remember, especially when we're asking our bodies to perform, that these things matter. So there really is, there's a place for supplementation when it comes to micronutrition, because even on a good diet, you can be missing the mark. And I'll be sharing more about that in an upcoming webinar. So feel free to follow me at Jackie Williams Wellness, or you can sign up for my email updates about future webinars on my website, jackiewilliams.com, so that you can learn how to safely and effectively supplement in the future if that's something you're interested in, because it is important. And I would be remiss not to mention it. So carb cycling, this is a secret strategy I just wanted to throw in here because I love utilizing carb cycling to help my clients reach their goals, especially if fat loss or weight maintenance is a goal. So first thing, you want to make sure that you're not struggling with any nutrient deficiencies, that your calories and your macronutrients are controlled. and aligned appropriately based on your body type and your goals. But once you've been doing that consistently for a long period of time, then you can start to consider these fine-tuning strategies like carb cycling. So carb cycling really is just eating more carbohydrates on some days, which are usually going to be your higher volume, higher intensity days, and eating fewer carbohydrates on your, low volume, low intensity, or off days. This is going to kind of help keep your body metabolism humming and really maximize your effort on the days that you need it and help you maintain or lose weight on the days that you don't necessarily. So we do focus on carbohydrates in a protocol like this, and not proteins or fats necessarily, just because carbohydrates do seem to have the most immediate effect on body composition changes or how you look and how you feel. So, by changing carbohydrates, you can really start to affect those things. So that is a little bit of a bonus strategy, secret strategy I want to share with you guys on that. If you have any questions as we go, again, please feel free to pop those in the chat. I do offer one-on-one wellness consults. So if there's something in particular that you want to try and kind of hone in on or strategize for, I'm definitely available to do that. Just let me know. Okay, so before we go, there's a couple points I do want to consider today. We really just covered one topic, which was fueling for optimal performance with nutrition, with food. But we always need to remember that our bodies operate as a whole machine. It's the whole car. And so it's really important to look at our bodies as a whole when it comes to not just athletic performance, but overall health as well. So some additional points to consider in all things, but especially performance, is going to be your stress levels. Make sure that have a good stress management program, because that can start to affect your hormone levels, which can start affecting your performance. Same goes for sleep. You want to make sure that you're prioritizing sleep quality and quantity so that you're giving your body that proper rest and recovery between training. And then, making sure that there's not any hormonal issues at play that are preventing you from reaching that optimal performance. That's definitely something to keep in mind, as well as any medical or health concerns or limitations. So while all of this information is really good and it can be beneficial, if it's not quite working for you, or if there's something just not happening that you want to see happen after you've done all of those things, these are definitely some additional points I would love for you to consider. And I love to speak on these because I love approaching wellness as a whole. I don't think, just fitness is going to get us where we really want to be, or just nutrition. It's looking at our body and our wellness as a whole package. And so I will be doing future webinars and nutrition seminars, live videos, all of those things on these kinds of topics in the future. So feel free to follow me or sign up for those email updates so you can catch those in the future. All right, you guys, so I have a couple more things for you. And remember, I am going to give you that link to the free cookbook next. So stay tuned for that. But I just want to wrap up by reminding you that there is no one size fits all. There is no perfect feeding program for everybody. It really has to be something that you commit to long term, and that you allow that trial and error with a lot of body awareness. And if you need help, feel free to reach out to a fitness or a sports nutrition professional that can help you kind of through that trial and error phase, really focus on what's going to work for you. So I want to leave you with just these concluding reminders today. The first really is to just understand your needs. Aim to eat for your body type and your training goals, and take into consideration what your needs and your desires and your lifestyle are as well. And then to simplify, if all of this is kind of a little bit of a lot of information at once, you're not quite sure where to start, I want you to prioritize whole foods. First and foremost, put whole foods on your plate, and everything else kind of starts to fall into place. So prioritize high quality protein, high quality carbohydrates, healthy fats, and lots of fruits and vegetables. And those can really start to make a big difference in your performance right away, but also in your overall health and well-being. And then time it right. So in terms of timing, remember, you have 1 to 2 hours, both pre-workout and post-workout. to really maximize your nutrition for your performance. There's always going to be some leeway there. You can make some adjustments, kind of see how your body is reacting and performing, and make sure that you're finding the timing that's going to be right for you. And again, commit long-term. So, you know, you're not really going to grasp what is going to work for you until you've committed to doing it over a longer period of time. So stay consistent with your body, with your nutrition, just like you would with your training. And remember that, you know, health and wellness and optimal performance really is a long game. And of course, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, you can pop them in the comments below of this video. I'm going to spend some time to go back and try and answer those as best I can. Feel free to connect with me online. I'm Jackie Williams Wellness right here on Facebook. You can follow me there. I tend to share a lot of whole wellness education and inspiration. Authentic Fit Chick over on Instagram, and you can find more, you know, blog posts and things like that over on my website, where you can also get the free cookbook. So just go to jackiewilliams.com and, you know, sign up right there. It'll say download free cookbook. You'll input your email there, and you'll get a direct link to access that today. There's hundreds of recipes, all kinds of things in there. And so I want to encourage you, that's free, go download it, and I will send you some additional ones to go with that in the future. So we're coming out with some smoothie recipe ones, some mocktails, all kinds of recipes. So feel free to stay tuned for those. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in today. I know that, you know, nutrition, especially when it comes to fueling our workouts, can really seem like, you know, complicated or next level stuff, but my goal is to always just make things as simple as possible, but still effective. So feel free to reach out to me anytime if you still feel like you need some help putting any of these, anything that you learned today into practice. Again, I do offer wellness consults. You can check that out on my website. And I just want to say thank you again for tuning in. And thank you to Das Rec here in New Braunfels for sponsoring this presentation today. They have a ton of really amazing nutrition lectures through their fitness facility here in town, both in person and also now online. And so make sure you're following the New Braunfels Das Rec Facebook page today so you can stay tuned to those. Check out some of the live workouts they're doing. Tag your workout buddies if they need some workouts. Or some nutrition information, you know, tag them, share this video, share all of the things that Das Rec is providing for you guys right here online, and definitely stay tuned for all of the additional upcoming nutrition lectures and fitness videos coming out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really look forward to connecting with you guys online, and I appreciate you so much for tuning in today. Bye.